In early spring in March, we arrived at scenic Jiangnan, China, on the south side of the Yangtze River, leaving behind all the hustle and bustle of the city. All over the mountain ranges and surrounded by green water grows lush and verdant Chinese Pinus masoniana lam, pines. We are at the source of raw material for Gaojian pine pollen, the beautiful Thousand Island Lake. The Thousand Island Lake is the largest man-made lake in China's Zhejiang province and was formed in the 1950s. It is the byproduct of the Xin'anjiang River hydropower station, the first hydropower station totally surveyed, designed and constructed by Chinese. The Xin'anjiang River hydropower station boasts a dam with a height of 105 meters. The reservoir spans approximately 150 kilometers from east to west, with the widest portion being 10 kilometers wide. It takes up a total area of 580 square kilometers. Rising water levels turned what once were mountains into islands. Totally, there are 1,078 islands, so hence the name Thousand Island Lake. When spring arrives, the lake view is picturesque with tranquil waters surrounding irregular mountain peaks. Paddling a boat in the glistening waters of the Thousand Island Lake, we take in the beautiful scenery of the far-off green mountains and glittering waters beneath us. The Thousand Island Lake presents itself as a serene and elegant painting. Take the turns along the 100-kilometer route and watch the mountain view change at every turn. The mountains that face both sides will accompany you along the entire journey. We are now traveling through the dense number of islands in the lake. Looking around to our left and right, we see thick layers of green pines cover the mountain slope. Cattails blossom along the belt-like water flow. On many of the small islands, the Chinese Pinus masoniana lam pines flourish with bursting pine flowers, with golden sprouts opening up on the tips of each branch. During each year, April is the blooming season for the Chinese Pinus masoniana lam pines. Budding flower sprouts are about to burst into life. During the rainy season, around the Grave Sweeping Festival, whenever the sun breaks out from the rain clouds, ripe pollen grains carried by the wind spread out their air cells after being rapidly released into the air from the ascospores and fall like golden dust onto the ground. They are so abundant that they form a thin layer on the ground so that as people walk past, they leave distinct footprints among the gold pollen. An ancient poem gives a vivid description. Walking across a stone bridge after zazen, wooden clogs leave footprints on the remnant pine flowers. The pine pollen falling onto the lake comes and goes with the flow. All of the ancient Chinese emperors wished for eternal youth and eternal life. Therefore, comprehensive books have been compiled to record top medicinal materials that have the effects of strengthening the physique, compensating the qi, and bringing one longevity. Pine pollen was among those items on the list due to its preciousness, rarity, and its unique medicinal value. Since the first index, Shennong Pen Xiaoqing, published in the East Han Dynasty, pine pollen has been recorded in the manuscripts of each successive dynasty. The index recorded that the pine pollen has a delicate sweet flavor and is innocuous. It is mainly used to treat heart and abdominal chills, fever, and forces of an evil nature. It facilitates urination and reduces blood clogging while easing and strengthening the body and promoting longevity. The index newly revised canon of Material Medica from the Tang Dynasty recorded the pine flower is also known as Song Huang. Prolonged ingestion of it eases the body. Its beneficial effects are better than the bark, leaves, and amber of the pine tree. Recorded in the Ming Dynasty, the pine flower is sweet, gentle, and innocuous. It can moisten the heart and the lungs and strengthen the qi. It is beneficial to the treatment of strokes and can be used as a hemostasis. It can also be used as a fermenting agent. The index Pen Xiaoqing analysis from the Qing Dynasty recorded the pine flower is gentle-natured. It inherits springtime's woody nature and tastes sweet and innocuous. It also gets its earthy quality directly from the soil and possesses a masculine smell. It moistens the heart and lungs as it enters the stomach via food and drink. Its essence is distributed by the spleen to the heart and lungs. The pine flower tastes sweet and promotes healthy functioning of the spleen. Its beneficial qualities are carried by the spleen as body fluid to the stomach and then finally transported to the heart and lungs. It also strengthens the qi. Due to its mild nature, it both strengthens the yang qi of the liver with its sweet taste, strengthens the yin qi of the spleen. It helps the smooth functioning of the liver, thus it is beneficial for the treatment of strokes. The spleen is responsible for the body's blood supply. The sweet taste harmonizes the spleen, and therefore it can be used as a hemostasis. The books Jiang Lu Ji and Ling Biao Lu Yi from the Tang dynasty both recorded the following legend. During the Jin dynasty, there was a well at the foot of the Shengjiao mountain in Bai state. If a mother drinks the water from the well when pregnant, her daughter is very likely to grow into a beauty. Legend has it that a pine tree next to the well bloomed every year, and the pine pollen fell into the well. This turned out to have a miraculous beautifying effect. Thus, the well is called the Beauty Well. Since pine pollen needs to be picked during the rainy season, around the time of the grave sweeping festival, a high water content is found in the picked flowers. It is difficult to preserve the harvests as they become moldy easily, making it impossible to be consumed widely by people outside of the district. Since the 1980s, after 10 years of research, Chinese scientists finally mastered preserving and storing technology for large-scale pine pollen pickings. This technological breakthrough made for a wide market application of pine pollen into a reality. They also carried out more research into the nutritional makeup of pine pollen and its physiological functions. In results proven by lab tests, pine pollen have been shown to contain a bounty of nutritious substances with over 200 different types. In addition, its nutritional ingredients are well balanced and all are active ingredients. The pine pollen can adjust, rebalance, and boost the body's immune system and alleviate any unfavorable symptoms. The China Rice Research Institute tested pine pollen for 29 types of pesticide traces and declared it to be a pollution-free and a healthy food source. The People's Republic of China Index added pine pollen into their nutritional compilation in 1985. In 1997, the State Ministry of Health affirmed pine pollen as a new resource food. The celebrated Chinese nutritionist Ms. Yu Rumu wrote of Gaozhen pine pollen, "This is a healthy food for all mankind from the gods." According to historical records, pine pollen has been used both as a food and medicine for more than 2,400 years. Ancient indigenous peoples called it longevity pollen. Each year, around Grave Sweeping Festival, local people would pick pine pollen to steam with pastries, make cakes, and brew spirits. Intellectuals and poets wrote about pine pollen food in numerous works. Chansha Qinggong from the Song dynasty mentions the Song Huang cake made of pine pollen, saying that it not only has a lingering sweet fragrance, but also beautifies and strengthens the body. Over many years, intellectuals from various eras have left behind many immortal poems, which have become part of the unique Chinese pine culture. Poet Bai Juyi from the Tang dynasty cherishes pines and planted pine trees all his life. Around the time of the Grave Sweeping Festival, he brewed pine wine using pine pollen that he had picked, which inspired his enduring piece, Jiangshan Xin. Pour down pine wine for an empty stomach. I have no worries about my life and illness because I readily accept my fate. Poet Su Dongpu from the Song dynasty not only made pine cakes from pine pollen that he had picked himself, but he also wrote a poem, The Pine Flower Song. Use at least 500 grams of pine pollen, 250 grams of non-fried cattail pollen, 16 grams each of pagoda flower and apricot flour, then mix them with 1,000 grams of white honey and stir all together. Consumed as food or used in a bath, it will help you maintain your youth for many years to come. In the Ming dynasty, the pine pollen was used as a tribute to the emperor from local officials. According to the Ming court history, at each grave-sweeping festival, the guarding eunuch of Tianshao Hill led all key officials to the capital city to receive civil construction approval. Each year they paid pine flowers, Coptis chinensis, tea, walnuts, hazelnuts, and chestnuts as tributes. It is obvious that pine pollen has a long history of being used as both a food and as medicine. Poet Wang Xixiong from the Qing dynasty wrote the following poem to praise pine pollen for its miraculous health care effects. This is a new way to attain longevity. Unfortunately, people today know little about it. Simply stir the songhuang carefully until they become powdery. Take it daily and you are guaranteed a healthy life. Traditional pollen, which is called caprification pollen, is collected by bees. Caprification pollen is from a diverse range of flower sources and thus contains mixed ingredients. The pollen quality is easily affected by pesticide traces, hormones excreted by bees, and other natural factors. Pine pollen belongs to the group Anemophilus pollen. Pine pollen is rarely contaminated by insects. It is therefore pollution-free, poison-free, and with no side effects. Through the hand-picking process, the resulting pine pollen is guaranteed to come from a pure flower source and be of a high quality. Guozhen pine pollen is picked from the Chinese Pinus Smithsoniana lamb pine forest at an altitude of 1,100 to 1,500 meters. These trees are hermaphrodites. This is a typical hermaphroditic tree. The female section is growing on the outside and the male section grows inside. The flower-based cells began to sprout in October the previous year. When the next spring comes, pollen fringes emerge. The fringes grow larger and larger as their color turns from green to yellow. Mature pollen uses wind as the medium to bring the male and female cells together. It then takes 13 months passing through summer to winter to finish the fertilization process. The fertilized oocyte keeps growing and turns into a seed by September of the third year. The entire process takes 28 months. Bountiful nutritional elements and antioxidant substances within the pollen play an important role during its very long gestation cycle. Otherwise, it would be almost impossible for the pollen to survive and carry out its reproduction mission in its relatively enclosed environment. At the Guozhen Pine Pollen Picking Center, we interviewed Mr. Huang Yonggang, the general manager of the New Era Health Industry Company. He introduced to us the key points to remember when picking pine pollen. He said,
"To ensure quality of the pine pollen, we must start from the flower source. We must follow 3 principles when picking pine pollen. Firstly, there must be absolutely no pollution source in the vicinity of the picking area, including pollution caused by traffic or pesticides. Secondly, there is a strict timing for the picking process. Look at this flower. It is not mature enough for picking yet and does not contain all the nutritional ingredients, while this one has already passed its peak, providing a very low yield. Now this one is suitable for immediate picking. It will provide a high yield and will contain all the nutrients. Finally, workers must carry out the picking, strictly adhering to the standards set down by our company. The clothes that they wear and the tools that they use must conform to our stringent requirements. We can only ensure high-quality pollen when all these guidelines are followed."
Pine pollen is a gymnosperm. It is the arenotoky cell of the Chinese Pinus Smithsoniana lamb pine. Pine trees are known for their longevity, frost resistance, and ability to grow in barren areas. Genes containing these qualities and traits are embedded in the pollen and are passed down through the generations. The nutritional ingredients of the pine pollen not only exist in the pollen grain, but also in the pollen sporoderm. To fully release the nutritional ingredients, the New Era Health Industry Company uses advanced technology developed for national defense utilization and for military usage. Low-temperature, high-speed technology is used to break down the pollen sporoderms. The resulting grain is as fine as 5 micrometers in diameter and is much easier for human absorption. This technological breakthrough in pollen picking, preservation, and sporoderm breakdown has finally made the pine pollen available to the general population, benefiting the human species as a whole. Among the many islands in the Thousand Island Lake, there is one shaped like a tortoise, called Golden Tortoise Island. On this island, a single Chinese Pinus Missoniana lamb pine named the greeting pine grows. Every year, the rains of the wet season totally submerge the small island for more than 80 days. Amazingly, when the waters finally recede, the lone pine still stands strong with its flourishing branches and leaves, emitting infinite unyielding life forces. For generation after generation, the pines have witnessed the harsh conditions brought on by the changing seasons. Enduring all of the challenges imposed by Mother Nature with their lean and upstanding bodies, they selflessly donate their essence of life to mankind without asking for anything in return. We humans must praise them for their basic giving and generous natures. We wish every one of you a long and healthy life, like the pines.